Hi there, I'm Ben Latour, your coach for clear, confident, natural English. Now, one of the things that people almost never talk about when they're talking about language education, language learning, communication, is actually the importance of how you sound when you're communicating with people. Now, don't get me wrong, the words you use, the syntax you use, the grammar you use, these are all very, very important aspects of communication and how clearly someone's able to understand you. That being said, it's not the only point. In this video, I'm going to be talking about something very specific, and that's going to be actually the way that you sound when you talk. There's a few different aspects of this. On the one hand, you have pronunciation. Now, some people talk about pronunciation, some people talk about accent. Now, both of these are similar, but not entirely the same. What's the difference? Well, pronunciation is kind of like the ingredients that you use when you're trying to make certain sounds or pronounce certain words. For example, tomato, tomato. This is a common example, but this is an example of pronunciation. I simply use this ah sound instead of the a sound, and that is a different pronunciation. I'm pronouncing that one sound differently. Now, if I combine a lot of these different sounds together, you will get what is called an accent. And an accent is just an amalgamation, a combination, a pattern of repeated use of certain types of pronunciations. Now, your pronunciation may sound accurate or not, and it may make you sound like a speaker of a certain language, or it may make you sound like a native speaker. Now, you can sound like a native speaker of various different places. You can sound Australian, you can sound British, you can sound Canadian, American, whatever it may be. But the trends in pronunciation, the patterns that you follow and apply, will then make you sound like you have a certain accent. Now, why am I talking about this? Because for one, the way that you pronounce certain words will make it so that people understand you or do not. Or sometimes it'll mean that some people will look at you with a bit of a strange look, not entirely sure what exactly you mean. Now, when these compound over and over again, you have a very difficult to understand pronunciation, and this results in an accent. Now, you can have an accent and be easy to understand. Now, for example, I have an accent that is a North American accent. I may be easy to understand for you, but I may also not be easy to understand if you're used to, for example, a British accent or someone from your country. Now, you can have an accent of various different types. Now, if you have a slight accent, for some people, that's not necessarily a problem. You might often get the question of, oh, where are you from? And then conversations often steer towards, where you're from, what food there is like, or, as many of my clients are from France, for example, they might have an accent, whether it's strong or not so strong, and people oftentimes asking the same exact question over and over again. Oh, you're from France. I love Paris. I love cheese. Bordeaux, whatever it may be. So an accent can create certain types of conversations. And for some people who may or may not be used to hearing people with accent speaking, it might be a little bit difficult for them. Now, a lot of people notice that as you keep talking with people more and more and more, people get used to your accent, and that makes it then easier for them to understand you. But then when you go and speak to new people and have conversations with people that you don't necessarily know, that communication then breaks down right away. You're no longer in a position where people will understand you the first time, and you might have to repeat yourself. Now, this may be a problem, or this may not be a problem for you. What a lot of people notice before they start working with me, or a lot of people notice when they move to the United States or an English-speaking country, is that what they thought previously as their accent or their pronunciation being quite good is they then arrive being able to write emails or read books and texts quite well, and they suddenly arrive and have to repeat themselves all the time. Or suddenly they're giving a presentation or a pitch to potential investors, and people seem to doubt whether or not they actually know what they're talking about. Now, you may have experienced this yourself in your own native language. Somebody might be speaking to you, although their grammar and vocabulary is quite decent, the fact that they have a strong accent makes you wonder whether they do actually understand your question, whether they do actually know what they're talking about, and whether or not they're established in your country and know the culture and the environment in which they're working. Now, this is exactly the same thing for English. Let's suppose you were to arrive in the United States. You arrive in Dallas, Texas, for example, and you arrive and you have a very, very strong Japanese accent, or you have a very strong Arabic accent, whatever it may be. You arrive there and you may speak or read and write English quite well. And when you go to speak to people, people look at you a little bit strange. They immediately ask you where you're from, how long you've been here, and things start to get a little bit strange. You might feel like people are treating you like a tourist rather than the person who's skilled coming to present their knowledge, present their product, their experience, whatever it may be. So you start giving your presentation, and when you're speaking to them with your strong accent, people are seeing you through this kind of filter. They're wondering exactly if what you say is exactly what you mean. They're wondering if the words you're using are exactly the ones you want to be using, and they're themselves trying to understand what's going on. It's as though there's a filter between what you're saying and what they're hearing, and they're trying to match all those words and sounds to what for them would be normal, natural, easy to understand. And so that takes mental effort, and they're spending more and more effort trying to focus on what you're saying, but instead they're caught up on how you're saying it. And this is not talking at all about your body language. This is not talking about the questions you ask, the way you shape your intonation. You want to make sure that you're clear and easy to understand and that people want to listen to you, but this is very difficult if on top of that there's a layer of people not being totally sure what it is you're saying. Now this is definitely a problem. For some people, they find that having an accent can be a slight advantage, especially when they first arrive in a country. I notice this a lot when people arriving to, for example, the United States, and people perceive them as exotic, or, oh, you're different, tell me about yourself, tell me about your country. And this kind of starts a conversation. And this is great at first, but you might find, as many of my clients have, that you have those same conversations over and over and over again, and it gets repetitive. You want to talk about business. You want to talk about books, you want to talk about literature, or whatever it may be. These ideas can be hard to come across if people always treat you as that outsider. They may not totally welcome you in as one of them. They may not trust you in the same way as they might trust somebody who's from the same country, or at least someone who seems like they're from the same country. Now, it's totally fine, and in fact, you should be proud of your country, of your language. I myself speak 5 languages, and I've lived in many different countries myself. I think languages are fantastic, and there's a certain strength to having an accent and a certain way of speaking. That being said, you don't want it to be your defining factor, especially when what you're selling, what you're advertising, or what you're trying to present as an employee, as a potential partner, etc. These are not necessarily the things that you want to be basing your relationship off of, especially if in the future you want to be developing this and become more credible, more clear, more easy to understand, and sound more natural. Now, this has been a quick overview over the importance of pronunciation and those non-verbal elements. Now, I'll be talking about intonation and body language in other videos, but for this, I want you to really understand how important it can be to have that clear, natural pronunciation, which then builds up to an accent. If you have a good accent, people will welcome you in much more. They will listen to you much more. They will understand you much more, and your messages will have that much more of an impact to your listeners. People will care about what you're talking about. They'll trust you, and they'll want to buy from you, hire you, or whatever it is your goal is. Now, my name is Ben Latour, your coach for clear, confident, natural English. If you have any questions about this, or you want some help, some guidance on improving your pronunciation, stepping up your English to the next level, and you feel like English might be limiting your opportunities, then send me a quick message, apply for a free consultation call on our website, ethellanguage.com, and I'll be happy to help.